Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the stream. Good morning to you. So we're going to be doing some new content today. I have some stuff that I was working on last night that I want to finish up. And maybe we'll also do more content just besides that. But yeah, I got a couple of things to show you. A couple of new ability types that I want to do. Oh, I forgot to reset the scaling of my editor here. Let's do that. But anyway, before I get into all that, I want to remind everyone that Alchemortis is available for wishlisting. It's a dark fantasy roguelite auto battler. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely give it a wishlist. And you can also support the game on Patreon. If you subscribe at this top tier for at least 1 month, I'm going to send you an Alchemortis Steam key when the game launches, and your name will be listed in the in-game Alchemortis credits. So that's just a nice perk of supporting me. Again, you only need to subscribe for at least 1 month. If you subscribe for longer, very much appreciate that. And of course, there's a lower tier here too, if you just want to give a smaller amount, but all this is appreciated and helps quite a bit. And also I've got my Udemy courses available for sale, so if you've been wanting to learn how to make games in the Godot engine and you want to learn from me, yours truly, your favorite niche e-celeb, then you could do that. I've got 4 different courses available for purchase, so you could check those out. Those are linked below. And the Discord is also linked below. You can join that. Come and hang out with everybody. And yeah, I think that's it. Hello, Nathan. Welcome back. Chris, good morning to you. Good morning. Jahar, good afternoon to you. Welcome. Ninja Link, good to see you. Ninja Link's on a 22 or 23 stream streak now. I was thinking I was up very late last night because I couldn't sleep, so I was working on Alchemortis, and I was like, should I just start a stream at like 2 a.m. to mess with Ninja Link? But I didn't, so I didn't. Okay, here comes the cat. All right, hello. Why is this part of your routine now, cat? Why is this part of your routine now? We gotta work. So I drew this, I drew a new card. That's not it. This one. So this is the Fist of Anger. This is basically a take on, I posted this just in the Discord a couple minutes ago, but this is a take on the album art of Metallica's Saint Anger. So this is going to be an item for the player called Fist of Anger, and it's drawn, but I don't have the abilities in place yet. What I was thinking about doing with this one, which I thought would be interesting, is... Hold on, let me see if I can fix that. Every time I open some art, there's always like 1 or 2 things that I see that I want to fix. Okay, we'll call that good. Anyway, so yeah, I thought it would be interesting to make this card like, this is a 2x2 card. I thought it would be interesting to make it have like a lower turn cooldown. Because typically the 2x2 cards have very long turn cooldowns. So it may be interesting to give this one a relatively quick turn cooldown. And I was thinking about doing something related to damage. I was trying to think of something creative like paralyze one card, like paralyze a random card, just either enemy or player, whatever. I kind of want to lean into something like this being like a blind rage thing. So it could paralyze one card, either the enemy or the player, and then it could maybe deal damage based on that card. But I don't know, don't I already have something like that? Deal damage based on paralyzed cards. Let me look for paralyzed. Let's see. You know what I need to have the AI do? I need to have the AI go through all of my cards and document what all the abilities are. I think it'd probably be pretty good at that. So just tell it to go through all the cards and document every single ability that every card has. So I can just read it in like a flattened list. Paralyze each card that dealt damage to the current board since last execution. I think we could do paralyzed. Heal per paralyzed card. Well, it doesn't really make sense to deal damage based on a paralyzed card. Damage increases by permanently this first time this card is paralyzed in combat. So that's the Flagrum. Oh, the problem... Yeah, so there's a problem with the Flagrum, which is that it won't carry over its damage if it's alchemized. Hold on a second. So I need to log that as a bug. So the Flagrum... I don't know... I don't know how I'm going to fix that, but that's all right. Okay, anyway, we'll worry about that later. So maybe we'll just do... What are we going to do for this card? Let's go open it up. Saint Anger. We will do, let's just do an ability builder. Let's just have it deal like 6 damage. And then we're going to do ability builder dot paralysis. And I think I can configure this. So let's give it a paralysis duration of 3. And then we could take the query target provider here. And we can configure this. Query target provider dot query source board query options. Query source board is equal to true. Query target provider dot query options dot query target board is equal to true. Query target provider dot query options dot query directions is equal to board inventory component dot query directions dot entire board. So we're just going to have it deal damage and paralysis, and we're going to give it a relatively low turn cooldown for a 2x2 card. So this one is Fist of Anger. Flavor text will probably be something related to like this being a demigod or something. So this is going to be a relic, and we can also make it actually, we'll just keep it relic. Critical chance, let's give it a 10% crit chance, 2.0 critical multiplier. Actually, let's do 2.5. That's a 100% crit chance. We don't want that. Let's actually give it something like a 5% crit chance and a 2.5 multiplier. Turn cooldown, we're going to give this a turn cooldown of 7. Actually, 6. And then dimensions 2x2. Okay. Project settings. Let's just go ahead and test that out. Game debug. Saint Anger. Anger. There we go. All right, let's see what happens. Hello, Diginanigans. Welcome back. What is that? Is that a snake? I can't tell what that is. It's time for game dev once again. Welcome, Jackie Daytona. Good to see you. Hello, Mr. Payushi. Welcome. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Good morning, Jeremy. Happy Friday. Yes, it is Friday. It is indeed Friday. Hello, Yito. Good to see you. Welcome. It's going well. How are you doing? Oh, this targets minions only. We don't want that. Let's do query target provider dot query options dot card tag filter. Does this have to be? I think I could just set this to card tag dot none. It's a snake doing the pog face. Oh, okay, very cool. How do you guys get these little images? Is this just built into Twitch or? Get down. I wonder, is there a way to put like custom emojis for my Twitch channel? Like, could I put Snail Cat up there? Could I get Snail Cat on Twitch? So there's an issue here. I need to fix this as well. If a query options object has a card limit and orders by random, the card that is highlighted is on hover, random each time. I think that should be an easy fix. I think what I would do is, for the highlighting purposes, I'd probably just ignore that order by random flag, or I'd ignore the limit flag and just highlight everything. I think that's what I would do. You could, but I'm not sure if the requirements, you may need to be a partner. I am a partner. I've been a Twitch partner for a while. They didn't revoke my partner status for some reason, so I've just been like this dormant partner for I'm pretty sure I'm a partner. I mean, I have like all the payout stuff configured. Maybe that's not what a partner is. Maybe I'm just lying to my audience. Maybe I'm just lying to everyone. Okay. So is this something that we like? Let's see. Fist of Anger. I made a bunch of changes to the map as well. The map internals, I should say. I've made some changes to the run manager state machine here because it was being a little bit annoying. So I've got the timings down a little bit more too in terms of like when the enemy patrols move and when the notoriety goes and when this Inquisition thing goes and all that stuff. You'll notice that the progress bar is not functional because the progress bar now, this is something else I did last night, this progress bar is now a shader entirely. So I have to change it. So I'm not using the Godot built-in progress bar anymore. Fortunately, progress bars are something that are very easy to do with shaders. So I'm just going to get rid of this progress bar here. And I also am going to get rid of these swirls here. And then I'll have to drive this progress with the shader uniform instead. But anyway, let's try out this Fist of Anger. So maybe we should give it another ability. I don't know. Apply 3 turns of paralysis to 1 random card. So that can affect allied cards as well. Do we want to do something else? It's the Arthur meme and Alchemorta. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. It's okay. Well, that's not the reference that I was trying to do, but if you want it to be the Arthur meme, then there you go. The Arthur meme, it's from this cartoon called Arthur. But anyway, the meme is like a clenched fist. Like he's supposed, it's like a kid show, but he's got like this clenched fist. Like he's losing, like he's hitting a breaking point. I don't know, you had to be there, I guess. You had to be there. Yeah. Of course, it's a JoJo reference. I don't know what JoJo is. Oh my gosh. Welcome, Emerson. Good to see you. Good to see you. I feel like this needs something else. Wonder if we could do something interesting, like every time a card is paralyzed, reduce the turn cooldown or something, or every time a card is paralyzed. Maybe we could give it like a critical chance buff when a card is paralyzed. Ooh, we should do that. We should do that. So let's add a little bit of extra thing in here. So whenever a card gets paralyzed, any card gets paralyzed, we're going to add a critical chance buff to it. How do I do that? var generic ability listener is equal to new generic ability. Do I not have a generic ability listener? Whenever a card is... How do I do a critical chance buff? Let me look where this is used. Maybe this is not going to work. Ability listener, execution listener. Where is this used? Board target type. Oh, I didn't call this generic ability listener. Okay, where is this used? Exhaust when exhausted. I need to apply a buff. How do I do that? Ability listener. Critical chance buff. Oh, that's wrong. I need to do, buff applicator. How do I do this? I need to apply a buff to myself when a paralysis happens. Everything is a JoJo reference. JJB. Wait, what is the original reference? It's a take on the Saint Anger album art. The album by Metallica. I mean, I guess it would be Star Platinum, but he's purple. Oh my gosh. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, a popular anime with a lot of weird S happening, like really weird S. Is it the Bizarre Adventure show? Hello, Nick. Welcome back. Good to see you. How's your week been, Nick? It is, but I've never seen it. I just saw a meme where people say that everything is a JoJo reference. Oh, okay. All right. So the JoJo reference is a meme in itself. We're reaching levels of memes never seen before. Been busy, very busy. Yeah, me too. Busy is good sometimes. If it's a music reference, then it's almost certainly could be a JJBA. How about you? Yeah, same. I've been busy as well, just working on Alchemortis. I regret to inform you that I'm probably not gonna hit my goal for this week that I had set because I got sidetracked doing something else. Oh well, it happens. It happens. We're getting meta, yeah. I honestly don't know how to do this with my system. So if I do an ability listener here, new ability listener, this takes in execution context, executed ability, and the listener card. I actually don't know how to do this. Does my system not support what I'm trying to do? I don't think I currently have a concept in the game of applying... I don't currently have a concept in the game of applying a buff in response to an ability somewhere else executing. I think I can make it work with this system, but I'm kind of wary of doing that. Because so there's two different concepts here. There's the buff that exists on the card, but then there's the ability that creates the buff. And so the part that I'm stuck on is it would be easy for me to just add the buff straight up to this card here in response to the executed ability being a type of paralysis. But the thing that I'm stuck on is, do I actually want to make that an ability execution? So I can do an ability execution that applies a buff. Or I can just apply the buff directly. The problem if I apply the buff directly is because it's not an ability execution, it doesn't go into the turn history, and it also won't cause anything else to scale. So if I have another card that scales off of the number of times a critical chance buff was applied, that will not count if I bypass the ability system and just add the buff directly. So that's the kind of problem that I'm dealing with here. I mean, I could do something really wonky here. I could do something, let's do it the wonky way first and we'll see what happens. This AI code is just like completely nonsense. Listener card. What is this listener card for? I don't like how this is working. Oh, I see. Right. So the listener card that comes in to this action that is invoked within the ability listener here, the listener card is whatever card this is attached to. And that allows me to determine, for example, like in this case, this is the exhaust when exhausted enchant. So this allows me to determine like if the exhaust that is being applied, so this ability listener will listen for exhausts that happen globally, but then I do another check down here to see if the exhaust was targeted at the listener card explicitly. Okay, so basically what I want to do is every time a paralysis is applied anywhere, I want to give this card a 10% critical chance buff. So what I need to do is we need like a var critical buff applicator. It's equal to new buff applicator critical chance buff. And then target provider, we're going to do query target provider dot self query. Initial base magnitude 10, and then we will do buff factory magnitude, do critical chance buff, magnitude divided by 100. Okay, then we have the conditional ability decorator. New conditional ability decorator. So I'm going to need now something like this. Var should apply buff is equal to false. Var reset state is equal to new generic transient state should apply buff equals false. This conditional ability decorator is going to decorate that critical buff applicator, and it's only going to run if should apply buff. Okay, let's put reset state in here. Ability listener in here, conditional ability decorator there. So now what I need to do base card ability dot empty result. Okay. If executed ability is not buff applicator paralysis debuff, We're going to return empty result. Okay. Should apply buff equals true. So there's another problem in here, which is that I need this to run generic transient state. When does this reset? Reset all ability states, reset all state. Really? I thought that generic transient state, transient execution state, reset state post execution. Turn executor component. Oh, wait a minute. So that's not going to work. I actually don't know how I'm going to do this. I basically need to run only this conditional ability decorator. If we are doing that in response to this paralysis applicator coming in. I actually don't know how I'm going to do this. It's okay, you've done better than the other folks in that group. Well, maybe at getting my goals done, yeah, maybe. When is it better to use CS over GD script and vice versa, or is it just about preference? I think it's just preference. I mean, there are certain cases where using C# is going to be better. For example, there are very specific scenarios where using C# can be a big performance benefit, but that is not just a general rule. I think a lot of people, when they're thinking about using C# with Godot, they just say, oh, well, it's C#, it's more performant. But a lot of the overhead in terms of performance comes from interacting with the Godot API. So whatever benefit you're getting from, the performance of C# is basically going to be nullified by the marshalling and unmarshalling of data passing to and from the Godot layer when you're doing Godot API calls. So the only situation where C# is going to be more performant is basically when you stay in the C# layer. And there are very, very few situations where you would do that. So anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying it's all personal preference, aside from some very specific scenarios where C# would be better for performance. But you can always change later. Mrs. did that for one of his games. I think it was that horror game where you're crawling around on the floor. He started off with the GD script solution to his fog of war thing, and then that was not very performant, so he switched to C# in the middle of development. And then he only wrote a C# script for that fog of war, and that improved the performance quite substantially. So that's what I'm talking about. It's there are very specific circumstances where it can help, but you can always introduce C# later if you need to. Hello, Brekek. Good morning to you. I'm currently going to be stuck on this ability. I mean, the other way of doing this is just to... Yeah, the other way of doing this is just to count up the number of times paralysis debuff was added and just merge that in to a single ability that gets executed. I think that might be the way to go instead of doing all this stuff. So I'm going to get rid of this. Get rid of this ability listener. Conditional ability decorator, we don't care about that. Okay. var paralysis tracker is equal to new ability type tracker provider. Ability type buff applicator paralysis debuff. Do I have board target type all board? Target board, update count, target board. Am I using this anywhere already? Oh, I am. Okay. Paralysis tracker. Board target equals board target type dot all boards. Okay, and that should give me all of the executions. So now I can do paralysis tracker in here. I don't think I need this conditional ability decorator anymore. Var buff amount is equal to new value scaler, paralysis tracker, value scaler, or buff amount dot set multiplier. Let's start off with 5. Const int base critical buff amount is equal to 5. Var current critical buff amount is equal to base critical buff amount. So now the problem in here is I need to, oh no. I need to modify this buff strength based on how many times that happened. Am I doing that anywhere else? Oops. I may need to update this buff applicator. Oh, that's gonna suck. So basically the problem with the buff applicator is I have no way of changing the magnitude dynamically. So basically I pass in the magnitude here when it's constructed, and I have no way of really changing that unless I reached into this like constructor function here. So that's not going to work. Well, ideally what I would do is I would pass in a value provider here. And then the value provider would be invoked to pass the magnitude into this factory function or constructor function, whatever you want to call it. But that means I have to update all of these places. Oh wait, I could call buff applicator set magnitude and base magnitude. Oh, but that's only for scaling. So maybe this shouldn't be... Maybe this shouldn't be an I ability magnitude then? Let me think. Then I have this, like the paralysis duration enchant, which increases paralysis duration. I actually don't know what I'm going to do about this. Man, how about increasing crit chance over time? Is that doable? Yeah, that would be doable. That's definitely doable. Might be overpowered, Alk, though. That's okay, some things are allowed to be a little bit powerful. I love doing other things. Hello, MKRD, welcome. Don't want to get too stuck watching this when I got work to do, unfortunately. That's okay. Thanks for stopping by, Breckheck. Have a good day. JGBA mentions happened and I was away. Sorry. Well, I'm kind of stumped, honestly. I don't know how I'm going to modify this. I basically need to change this number. I need to change this number based on how many paralysis abilities were done. I mean, I think the obvious thing to do is to change this so that this uses an I ability value provider. Because my I ability value provider here, the interface basically defines a function called getValue, and then that can be evaluated every time it's called. So anytime I need to get the value out of something, it's always going to be the most up to date. Yeah, the only problem is I don't know how I'm going to do this paralysis duration enchant. I don't know how I'm going to add duration to this. Value scalar, multiplier. I think I might have to change all this stuff. Hello, Neozoid. Welcome back. I'm going to go home and apply some corporate principles to my family life so I can generate more revenue for the 0.01%. We need to make sure our overlords can buy more yachts. I mean, you know, I wouldn't mind if you all made me rich enough to buy a yacht. I actually probably wouldn't do that. I think that a yacht is the last thing that I'd buy with any massive wealth that I had. All right, well, I think it's time to do some refactoring. I think I'm going to need to, if I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do, I need to refactor this to use an I ability value provider instead. Now I got to change all this stuff. Initial, so yeah, we're not going to make this a magnitude ability anymore. Oh, is that gonna... I hope this doesn't break stuff. Does this need to be a magnitude ability? If executing ability is a magnitude ability, modify ability magnitude. So one thing that I'm potentially going to lose is the ability to modify. I'm going to lose the ability to modify the magnitude of a buff applicator from like an artifact or something. Modifier abilities. Where do I have, what is this? Ability magnitude modifier. Right. So this is actually going to completely break if I remove the ability magnitude from that. Oh, man. What am I going to do about this? Is there a more clever way to do this? There's got to be a clever way to do this. Initial base magnitude. So the problem is this is an I ability magnitude. I can't. Can I wrap this in a dynamic magnitude ability? Hold on a second. Dynamic magnitude ability. Can I do that? Oh. I'm glad I took a step back there for a second. I can wrap this in a dynamic magnitude ability. Dynamic critical buff applicator. New dynamic magnitude ability. Okay. I ability value provider. This is going to be the buff amount and critical buff applicator. And then I put paralysis tracker, dynamic critical buff applicator. I have to see what happens if I apply a 0 here. I might need to wrap this in a conditional ability decorator now. Goodness gracious. Conditional buff applicator. Dynamic critical buff applicator. Buff amount. Whoops, buff amount dot get value is greater than 0. Okay, all right. So this becomes the conditional buff applicator now. Goodness gracious. So essentially what's happening is I have the critical chance buff. This is the thing that actually applies the buff, but I'm wrapping that in a dynamic magnitude ability, which is reading from the buff amount to get whatever amount it should pass in as the magnitude. But then in order to prevent 0 critical chance buffs from being applied, I'm just wrapping this in a conditional decorator so that it won't actually execute the ability unless the value is greater than 0. Okay, so now the tier here, bar scalar equals ability scalars dot make additive scalar. Okay. Amount is 5. Value scalar, no. Buff amount dot set multiplier, no. Current critical buff amount is equal to scalar base critical buff amount tier buff amount dot set multiplier current critical buff amount. Okay. Goodness, I think that's right. So for every tier, we're going to increase the critical chance by 10 or by 5%, but that's a multiplier on this buff amount. That multiplier is going to be multiplied by the number of times that we've got paralysis since the last execution, and then that's ultimately going to get into this buff applicator as this magnitude value. Okay, all right, I think we're good. Now I have to look at what my... Okay. Gain current buff, critical buff amount, percent critical chance for each time paralysis was applied since last execution. That took a lot longer. Just invest in the stock market for that sweet 59-cent dividend. Well, yeah. I'm just trying to make sure I'm using this language properly. Okay, yeah. I just have to make sure that I'm trying to use my language very, very carefully. So I want to... Right, so this one is wrong. Apply value scalar poison for each time. For each time heal is applied by an allied card since last execution. So this is only tracking allied cards. So I want to make sure that that's good. Damage taken, that's fine. Opponent, that's fine. Damage was taken. Paralyze each card that dealt damage to the current board since last execution. That's fine. Okay. Now, I don't know if this is the proper language to use either. I think I should probably use this language here. Oops. Increases. Well, actually. Yeah, I gotta get this critical chance language all straightened out too, because there's a difference between a critical chance buff and a critical chance like modification on the card. So I'm gonna need to, yeah, do a language pass on that for sure. So let me write that down. I think I already have that. Clarify critical chance increase versus temporary critical chance buff. So I'll just do this for now. Gain critical chance for 1 execution for each time paralysis was applied since last execution. That should be fine for now. What I'll probably do is I'll probably use the word gain for the critical chance buff, and then I'll use the word increase for anything that modifies the critical chance. For example, if I have a card that says increases this card's critical chance by 20% if it's on the edge of the board, that means that while it's on the edge of the board, it just has that critical chance increase, right? But then there's the ability, which is the critical chance buff, and that only lasts for at 1 execution. So you buff the card's critical chance. As soon as that card executes, it loses that critical chance buff, so it needs to be reapplied to it. So those are two different things, and I'm not making that super clear in the language of the abilities that that's what's happening. So I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to have to do that. Terraria has made me completely unproductive. Yeah, many such cases. One of my good friends recently got Arc Raiders, so I guess I'm not quitting Arc Raiders anytime soon. That is eating up too much time every week, but that's all right. All right, let's see if this works. Oh, I gotta show you guys the new enchantments that I added too. I added some new enchantments last night. Oh, I need this to be applied deferred, I think. So basically what was happening there is it was adding the critical chance during that ability execution, but since it's the last ability in the list, it was just immediately being cleared because that was the end of the card execution. So the way the cards work is that the abilities execute in top-down order. So it will deal damage first, it will apply paralysis first, then it will apply the crit chance, but of course it's not doing any more damage anymore. So it applies the crit chance, but then the card is done executing and it clears all of those execution buffs. So yeah, basically what's happening is that it's just immediately clearing the buff after being applied. So if I do a deferred application, what that's basically saying is apply that after we've processed the execution end state, and that way that buff will be present for the next turn. So if I do this now, it still doesn't have it. What in the heck? Well, I guess we're gonna have to figure this out now. Yeah. Dang it. I was certain that was gonna work. It's not working at all. All right. Okay, let's put the training dummy on. And we're just going to have to go into, we're just going to have to step through this, I guess. Just going to have to step through it, I guess. Probably something dumb, like usual, but I hope it's not. I hope it's something not dumb. So then we go into update count. Total executions equals 1. Okay. So now let's go into the buff applicator here. Targets is 0. Oh. Oh, right. Yep, it is something dumb. I need to put this query target provider as an ability. This query target provider does not update unless it's explicitly added into the execution list. So I need to pull that out and then put the query target provider here. That should work now. I always forget to do that. I just assume that the query target provider is just like a passive thing, but it's not. It has to be added to the execution list. Okay, let's try it now. Okay, critical chance increased by 5%. So we've got that buff on there now. Perfect. Okay. And it should do 5% again. So it should basically just have a permanent 5% buff. So when it executes, that first 5% buff is dropping off, and then the new 5% buff is dropping, or is being added on. However, if I were to get something else that has paralysis, I should see that this will increase to 10%. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and add another Saint Anger there. Goodness gracious, this card took way longer than I wanted to. Literally join stream and then get called right into a meeting. What's it getting worked on now? Just finishing up the abilities for this Fist of Anger. That's all. It was giving me a little bit of a hard time, but we're good. We're good. So both of these should end up having a 10% crit chance after they go, I think. Let's see if it works. Come on, let me see a 10% crit chance. Oh, it paralyzed its friend. Oh no. Uh, 10% there. I think that's working. So the way paralysis works is that it won't target an already paralyzed card. And so what's happening is, since this is being paralyzed by one of the fists, then when the second fist goes, it's paralyzing its friend. Which is fine, that's intended. Like, this is intended to paralyze any card, not just allies or enemies. But I think it's working. Critical chance increased by 10%. Yeah, I think it's working. Fitting that it paralyzed an ally card, yeah. I kind of wanted this to I wanted this card to feel like kind of like a blind rage thing. So it's got a high critical multiplier, and it also just paralyzes things like just haphazardly. So hopefully it fits the theme a little bit. Of course, in the flavor text, I have to make a reference to the album. But anyway. I'm going to call that good for now. Fist of Anger, we need flavor text here. I have so many things in my to-do list that aren't finished. Or my progress list. But anyway, I'm going to take a quick 3-minute break. And when I come back, we'll find some other stuff to do. I've got some cleanup that I want to do around the run progress bar. So I'll probably do that. I also will show you the new enchants that I added. But anyway, I'll be right back in just 3 minutes and we'll continue on. Okay, I'm back. I could see a fist build, just paralyze everything and then swing for massive damage. Yeah, that's kind of the idea behind the card. We'll see how it works in practice, but yeah, just get a bunch of paralysis, just haphazardly paralyze everything and just have the fist deal just absolutely insane damage. Pairs well with Mandrake and Flagrum as well. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, let me show you the new enchants that I added. I don't know if I'm going to start up the game, but basically I added these new enchants called tag enchants. These allow you to add a tag to a card. So in the same way that the Acolyte projects the ritual tag to cards that are adjacent to it, now there are enchants where you could put basically any tag you want on any card. So I think that's pretty interesting. So I could, if I have a card that's really strong, but it's not quite synergizing with something else on my board because it's missing a tag, you could use the enchant to add that tag to the card now. And that was relatively easy to do because I already had the code in place for the Acolyte. So the Acolyte has this tag modifier here. And all that does is that just puts temporary tags on the target. And so it's the same thing here. This tag enchant adds this hidden ability to a card, which basically just modifies its own tag and using that same function or that same logic. And so, yeah, there you go. Should be cool. Should be fun. Just adding a little bit of extra strategy. But anyway, let's see what is up on the to-do list here. So I do need to change to update the run progress bar here. Let's do that. Let's go to the run progress bar. What the heck? Run progress bar. So here, so this is a sprite now. So I actually need to delete that progress bar. We could delete the swirl mask stuff. We don't need that anymore. Now this should be easier to fade out as well. Is it going to be easier to fade out? Oh, maybe not. I'm going to need to put this underneath a canvas group, probably. I think that's okay if I do canvas group. Yeah, that should work. So let's do progress bar, canvas group. Mark this as a unique name. Okay, we get rid of this progress bar here. We are going to need the private sprite 2D progress bar. Rename this to progress bar, access as unique name. Do I need the progress bar container? I do, okay. And we get rid of the swirls here. Okay, so swirls are going away. We're going to need to grab the material, private shader material, progress bar material. Progress bar material is equal to progress bar dot material as shader material. So get a reference to that. Private static read only string shader progress. Or I guess I can make this const. So I always forget how to do this. We're going to do the shader progress bar material. I think this needs to be shader parameter slash progress. I think that should work. And then for fading in and out, we want to grab the canvas group for the fade. Private canvas group, progress bar canvas group. And then here we want to fade out progress bar canvas group, fade in progress bar canvas group. All right, let's see if that works. Turn off the training dummy. Okay, yeah, that seems to be working. So we're at 99 out of 100 Inquisition strength now. If I just skip this, and it's fading in and out properly as well. That goes back down. I can go to my enchant. And that fills up very nicely. Okay, cool. My progress bar woes are over now. So that's good. So one thing I want to do is I want to, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to tween that wanted level as well. Or that notoriety strength. Inquisition strength, whatever it's called. So we're setting parallel here, tween property, set delay. Okay, so let's also do this. Progress tween dot tween method. Callable method. Callable dot from int. Tweened wanted level. I have actually forgot how to do this. Tween method is a little bit confusing sometimes. From, we want to do, I guess we need to store the current notoriety level. Okay. Private int current notoriety level, update state, current notoriety level equals new notoriety level. We probably want to do that after this, actually. Okay, so we're going to tween from the current notoriety level to the new notoriety level. And then we're going to copy this here. Applied parameter duration, 0.25. Okay. And then we'd take this. Wanted label.text is equal to new notoriety level. This is tweened. Tweened level. Okay. I have no idea if that's going to work. Let's see. Let's see. It seems to be working. Oh, I just tried to drag that card. Oops. Oops. Yeah, so now the text is tweening with the progress bar. So it's very quick. It's only 1/4 of a second, but it's the little things like that, I guess, that make a difference. But anyway, progress bar is now working. It's fully a shader now, so I'm not using the Godot texture progress bar anymore. Cool. Artifact idea, Death's Albatross. Paralysis is increased by 1 turn. Okay, I like that. I like that. Okay. Artifact ideas. So we'll write that down. I'm gonna do something a little bit boring here. This card has been hanging around in the progress for a while, so I'm just gonna update all this stuff. I basically just want to properly JSONize the all of my models here. The nice thing about doing this too is that this kind of like overrides the name for this. So if I ever get into a situation where like the code name for this, like runs abandoned, doesn't make sense anymore, I can rename this symbol but keep the property name the same, and that will preserve backward compatibility with any like future saves, right? So instead of relying on the member name in the C# class, I can specify a name ahead of time, put it in the proper like snake case format that is typical, or no, JSON doesn't use snake case, it uses camel case. Son of a biscuit. Or is it not? No, yeah, camel case, that's what it is. You could tell that I've been out of my software job for a while. Oops. But anyway, yeah, so this just puts like a static name to this. So if I ever renamed these for any reason, it would still store and read from the JSON property that has this name instead. So let's just run the game and see what happens. That should generate a new save file, and everything should be formatted correctly now. Quit to menu. Let's open up the save file. Oh, I need to go into my... Yeah, this needs to be JSON property as well. And then character unlock model. Okay. Let's see. Let's see if that generated a proper JSON now. Yeah, looks good. Okay. Good. And there's another trick you can use too if you're building a save system. Instead of having to go into like your user directory where you would typically save things, you can override the save location for like debug builds. So if I go to my, well, where is that? Yeah, so I guess you could do this with maybe a project setting as well, but I just have it so that if I'm on a debug build, I'm directing it to the resource directory and this hidden logs directory. I'm doing that for my logs too. And that's nice because then it's just like in my project directory, and so I can see the log file here, and I can also see my save file here. So I don't need to go like to the user directory to find those things. I think the logs is probably a better one to show with the project settings. Where is the logging? File logging, here we go. So yeah, we have the log path here, which is just user logs for normal builds, but when I'm in a debug build, it goes to this resource directory instead. So when I release the game, you know, when I do a release build publish on Steam, the logs will be directed to the user directory. But when I'm developing the game, the logs get directed to this logs directory that I just showed you. So that's just a nice little trick. It keeps everything easier to keep track of. You don't have to jump around your file system to go find the logs and stuff while you're developing. Anyway. Okay, so I can mark that one as done finally. Is there anything else we can get done here? Make strongholds trigger boss fight plus some kind of bonus. I mean, that's already the case. They are upgrading all the cards. I do need to improve the clarity of that, but I'm going to mark that as done because that is in place. And just in my to-do list here, I'll say so that players know how strong the Inquisition is. And then the other thing that we want to do here is what? Add some additional buffs. Buffs to defeating strongholds / field or patrol bosses. This is done. Sometimes I just go and do things that I've already written down without tracking them. I have the plan to do the visual effects differently during combat as well. I want to make them more targeted so that it looks more interesting, like more visually interesting, the battles, but I'm still trying to think about that. But you know, if you look at other auto battlers like the Bazaar, there's always like effects coming from the specific card and then hitting the enemy health bar, for instance. I want to do something like that for this game as well, where if you're like applying poison or fire, fire's a good one because when fire is applied, it just creates a fire effect on the enemy board. But I want to add some kind of visual indicator like which card the fire is coming from. I think that would be good. So yeah, I don't know. We'll have to think about that. But I think there's opportunities to make the combat stage a little bit more visually interesting. There's some bugs in here that I need to fix as well. Oh, there was another ability that I wanted to do. Maybe we'll start on that. I don't know what card this can go on, but what I want to do is I want to create a card, a player card, which, depending on its location on the board, so let's say like if it's on the top edge of the board, when combat starts, it will permanently absorb a random enemy ability from the enemy board. and then it will keep that ability until it reabsorbs something. So, for example, the way that it would work is that if it's on the top of your board when you start combat and has no absorbed abilities, it will choose a random enemy ability from the enemy board and put it on itself. And then you can move that card off the top edge of the board and that will retain that ability. But if you leave it on the top edge of the board, it will replace the ability. And then the idea is that we put a number, like a cap on it. So every time the card increases in tier, it supports one additional ability it can absorb. So if it was tier 2, it would be able to absorb 2 abilities. So you keep it on the top edge of the board for 2 combats, it absorbs 2 enemy abilities, and then you can move it off of the top edge so that it stops doing the absorb behavior, but now it has those abilities on it like permanently. I think that would be cool. So we're going to try that. I'll eventually have to figure out how I want animations, particle effects for my game to work. 9 enemies, 3 characters, and an auto battler. Yeah, the visual effects are hard. Like, that's something that I struggle with a lot too. Like, it's one thing to draw the art, but it's another thing to like bring shaders and particles and like all this other visual presentation into the game. Especially when you're dealing with an auto battler where things are happening very quickly. It's like, you can't like be too detailed or too ostentatious with the effects because then it will just make it look like a mess, right? So it's got to be like very, very elegant, slightly subtle effects that also give you some information, right? That sounds cool, sort of like Ditto from Pokemon. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the Pokemon stuff, but yeah, something like that. Sounds like a good idea. Okay, let's do that. I don't have an idea for what the card theme could be, though. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that ability on my God mode object to start. Because once I have the ability written and working, I could just copy and paste it onto whatever card we end up doing. But I think the more interesting thing to do now is to figure out how that ability is going to work. So we'll do that, but unfortunately, I need to take another quick break. So I'll be back in a couple of minutes, but then we'll start on that ability. Hello, I'm back. What? This man doesn't know Pokemon? I was just never into anything like that. Never into Yu-Gi-Oh, never into Pokemon, never into anime. I was just I was the guy that was playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 for like 24 hours, 26 hours a day. That was me. Maybe a chameleon. Oh, a chameleon might work. Something like that. Someone near my age doesn't know anything about Ditto. I'm dead, yeah. Okay, let's figure out how we're going to do this ability. Is there a way that I think I have like an ability list provider? On post combat victory. I post combat victory listener. So we're gonna need a combat start listener, I think. So let's do that. So in my abilities here, let's do a generic combat start listener. This we're gonna need, so we have this, so public, let's do namespace, game.data.ability. Okay, public class, generic combat start listener, action, we'll just pass in an action, we don't need any arguments just yet. On combat start, we don't have any context, so we're just gonna invoke the action. I suppose this should be a non-combat ability? Probably should be a non-combat ability. Is that right? Something like that, I don't know. But we need this I combat start listener. Combat start listener. Okay. Namespace, game.data.ability, public interface, I combat start listener, void on combat start. Let's go to base card. We are listening on combat started already. So what I'll do is I'll just copy and paste this. I combat start listener, on combat start. Cool. So the reason why I create a generic with an action is because I can use that in sort of like my fluent, is what I'm calling it, my fluent ability definition. So I don't need to define a class beyond this that has this I combat start listener. What I can do if I go to my God mode, this is where we're going to put the ability, is we're going to do bar absorb enemy ability is equal to new non-combat composed ability. And then what I can do in here is I could do bar combat start listener is equal to new generic combat start listener. Then I can pass an action in here. So we've got the action there. And I can do whatever logic I need in here, and then I just do return new ability builder dot ability configuration. Abilities is equal to combat start listener. Description func is equal to, we'll just do string.empty for now, and then scaling func is equal to tier just empty for now. Okay, so we've got the combat start listener. So now what I need is I need the list of all of the enemy abilities. I have an I ability list provider, or just an I ability list provider here. Execution context with state. I'm probably going to need, let's see. How am I going to get the list of all the abilities on the enemy board? Can I even add abilities to myself? Oh, this is going to be actually a little bit tricky here. Let me think about this. So we're definitely going to need some kind of context object in here. Why are these in two separate places? I might need to do some moving some things around. Game.data. Yeah, this is in the wrong spot. Execution context with state. We're going to move this to scripts, data. I think it's just in data. Move there. Okay. I wonder if that broke anything. I don't think it should have, because the namespace didn't change. The namespace is still proper. Yeah. Okay, so we're good there. I am going to need a combat execution state. New file. Combat start. We'll call it card combat start. Context. Namespace game.data. Just that. Public record card combat start context. Public required base card. Base card. Get init. Public required. Let's do player board. Let's do board. Player board. Get init. Public required board. Enemy board. Get init. Okay. Do you load save data into its own autoload or just read directly from the save data when you want to access those properties? Yeah, so what happens when the game starts, or what will happen, it's kind of like in progress system, but yeah, what happens is I load the data from the disk into memory, and then I modify that. I just keep the save data in memory. So if I ever need a piece of information from the save data, I just read it from memory. And if I need to change a piece of save data, then I change it in memory. And then I just make sure to resave that data to disk at appropriate situations, right? So for example, while I'm in the run, I'll be collecting all these stats about like damage dealt and stuff like that. But when I quit, when I abandon the run, or when I quit to menu or whatever, then the data gets persisted to the disk at that point. So it's basically like whenever you have your save points, whenever you want to persist data to the disk, that's when you do it, but otherwise the save data stays in memory and you can modify it as necessary. And so that's a nice thing to do, because you basically just keep, it's a single source of truth, right? On startup, it's just taking the save data and putting it into memory, and then for all intents and purposes, you're just interacting with the save data in memory, and then you can handle when you want to just persist that to the disk whenever. But there's not multiple, like, there's not like read and write from the disk constantly whenever I need data or whatever. It will never read the save data from the disk again after the initial startup of the game. It's basically how it works. Have you considered cards that have different ability based on board placement? Yeah, I could definitely do that. I kind of have that already, but yeah, if we want to just say like this ability only executes if it's on the left edge, and this ability only executes if it's on the right edge, that could be interesting too, because I could say there's an ability that executes on left edge, and then there's an ability that executes if you're on top edge. And that means if you place in the top left of the board, you get both of those abilities, right? How do you find motivation to work on the game every day? Yeah, it's not about motivation, it's about discipline. If you're trying to ride on motivation alone, you're not going to succeed. You have to have a habit of working on your game, and you have to work on your game even when it sucks, even when you're not motivated to, because that will happen. I don't think there's such a thing as any long-term project where every moment of it is so fun that you're just motivated to work on it. You know, there's always going to be parts that are boring, tedious, sluggish. You know, there are going to be systems that you have to redo 3 or 4 times before they're in a good state, and that can be very demotivating actually. But if you're not relying on motivation, you instead rely on discipline, rely on just sitting down and working regularly, then the motivation will come and go as a result of that. How about abilities that want empty edges? I do have that already. That's an enemy card, but I don't have any for the player card yet. How do you build discipline? Any tips or tricks? Yeah, you just have to be consistent. Start off, you know, if you're having a hard time even working on your game for 15 minutes, then just set that as your goal. Just say, you know, every work day this week, I'm going to work on my game for at least 15 minutes, right? And just try to get through that. And then, you know, try to get some kind of work done during that 15 minutes too, like write a couple lines of code or, you know, start on a new art asset or whatever. And then once the 15 minutes is up and you're still not feeling it, you can say, okay, I'm done. But the point is you do that every single day and you get into a habit of doing it. As long as if it becomes part of your routine, then it becomes a lot easier to do. So find a time that you're free, dedicate 15 minutes and just try to do that for an entire week. And then as you get comfortable with that, as that becomes easy for you, up the amount of time that you're working on it to like 30 minutes. And then just keep upping the time gradually until you get to the point where you can work for an hour or 2 on your game every day, and it feels very easy to do. You can only get ice cream if you do some game dev, yeah. And what you'll find too is that, like I said, the motivation comes and goes. Like there are parts in Alchemy where I'm having so much fun working on it that I just like, that's all I want to do all day, right? But then there are other parts where it's like, oh, this sucks. I don't want to write this code, or this functionality or this bug is gonna just be terrible to fix. And that's where it's like, okay, just do your couple of hours or whatever that you usually do on the game, and then you can, you know, stop. Been struggling with that lately. Yeah, it's a common struggle for sure. It's a common struggle. Okay, so action. Pass that context in there. Okay, and then we do base context with base card equals card. All right. So now we've got the context object there. Okay. So we've got that context object. So now what I have is I have this context in here that I can accept. So now what I can do is I could say var all enemy abilities is equal to context.enemyBoard dot board inventory component dot get cards on board dot, oh gosh, dot select many x get base composed abilities to list. So we're basically selecting all of the abilities in a one giant list here. And now we need to figure out a way of adding this to the card. Oh gosh. Oh no. So the problem is it's not safe for me to do add composed abilities here. Because when I do alchemy and I pull these abilities into other cards, I don't think that this is going to be referencing the new card that it gets added to, because this just basically gets lifted from here. And it does get duplicated, but I think this add composed abilities would still be referencing the original card here. So I need to have like some kind of well, I do have the base card coming in. So I have the context base card. I can do add composed abilities, and then I can take a random enemy ability here. So we'll just do this. If all enemy abilities dot count is equal to 0, we're just going to return out of this all enemy abilities dot let's do mathutil.rng.rand I range 0 to all enemy abilities dot count -1. All right, let's see if that much works. So we'll get rid of this ability builder damage 10,000 here, and we'll do the absorb enemy ability. So obviously I'm missing a lot of stuff in here. I think the hardest part is going to be, well, I have to consider alchemy. I have to make sure that whatever ability is absorbed gets carried over after alchemy, which I think will already happen, but that's going to be something I have to check. The hard thing to do is going to be to replace the ability. So knowing which abilities were absorbed, and then, oh, and this needs to be duplicate. So I'm not sharing a reference there. So the hard thing is going to be replacing the absorbed abilities, but let's just see if this works first. So let's put back the training dummy. And I don't actually know what ability the training dummy has right now. Training dummy. Is it just like, oh, it's shield 5. Okay, we'll try that. Hello, Severus Snare. Welcome back. Good to see you again. Okay. I don't have any description on this, but that's all right. Look at that. It absorbed the 5 preserve. So now if I look at it, it's applying 5 preserve now. Look at that. Cool. So the absorb ability worked. Okay. So what now? This needs to only... Oh, you know what? I think I might need to modify my base card too. If should execute ability... I don't think this is accounting for... Oh, I don't have an execution context. Is it safe for me to pass in null here? I guess it is. So let's make this work. Let's just do a create execution context here. If ability is base card ability, and should execute ability, base card ability. We'll just do this. So if it's a base card ability and we shouldn't execute it, then we're going to skip it. And what this is going to allow me to do then is this is going to allow me to add a conditional decorator to this. So var query target provider is equal to new... Actually, we could do query target provider dot self query. Query target provider dot query options dot directions is equal to board inventory component dot query directions dot top edge. Okay. Now we add a conditional ability decorator. So var conditional listener is equal to new conditional ability decorator. We're going to put the combat start listener in there, and then we're also going to do the condition here will be query target provider dot get value is greater than 0. So this is basically going to say, am I on the top edge of the board or not? Conditional listener and then query target provider there. Okay, so what I should see is that this will no longer update or absorb the enemy ability unless I'm on the top edge of the board. So we'll give that a shot. Hello, Fira. Thank you for the raid. Party of 15. Thank you. Very much appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. We're working on my game Alchemortis, which is a dark fantasy roguelite auto-battler. The Steam page is linked below, so if that sounds interesting. The main hook of the game is that you can use alchemy to create your own synergies by mixing and matching cards and their abilities. So if that sounds interesting, check it out. Give it a wish list if you're interested. I am good. How are you doing? Hello, Rig Dev. Welcome to the stream. Gotta go for dinner at a friend's place, so I need to lurk and then run. That's all right. Have a fun rest of stream. Thank you. I hope you enjoy your dinner. Stay locked in. Yes, we always got to stay locked in. We always got to stay locked in. Okay. All right. So, yeah, for the new people here, what I'm trying to do currently is I'm trying to create a card ability that allows that... I'm trying to create a card that has an ability that absorbs an enemy ability based on its position in the player board. And I think it's going to be okay, but so basically what I made it do is it should absorb this apply 5 preserve ability from this training dummy here, but only if this is on the top edge of the board. So let me see if that works. Okay, so it did not absorb the ability. Perfect. So let's restart. And now I'm going to place it on the top edge of the board. And let's see if it absorbs that ability here. And it did. Look at that. Now it's applying shield. So it has absorbed this 5 preserve. Okay, cool. So that part is done. The next thing that I need to try, though, is... Let me just try alchemy real quick. So I need to make sure that that ability stays when I alchemize. Let's just do this. It did stay. Okay, perfect. So I still have the 5 preserve on there. Now the real tricky part here is that I want the ability to be replaced if it stays on the top edge of the board. So it needs to know which ability was absorbed, and then it needs to be able to swap that out. Oh, how is this going to work? I wonder how that's going to work with like multiple alchemy. Like if I had multiple versions of that ability and I alchemize them onto the same card, I could have potentially like 3 or 4 absorbed abilities onto something that is also going to absorb abilities. Wait a minute. How is this going to work? I think what I'll do is I'll just look at all of the abilities that are flagged with like absorbed or something, and I will remove... How do I want to do this? So based on the tier of the card level is going to determine how many abilities it can absorb. If it ends up with more absorbed abilities than its tier can support, then what I'll probably do is just purge those from the card when the combat starts. And then just replace all of the abilities that it can support. Yeah, so I guess it can just be a replacement. So when combat starts, it will just say, okay, how many abilities can I absorb? It will absorb that many abilities all in one go, and it will just replace all of the absorbed abilities on the card. I think that makes sense. So I'm going to need a flag, some kind of flag to track which abilities are absorbed. Yeah, something like that. Also meant to ask you, I saw you set up keybind remapping for controller and mouse and keyboard in Gunforge. How did you do that? I struggled with setting that up recently. That is a good question. I could probably open up my Gunforge project and take a look at it real quick. Oh, give me a second. Let me see if I can actually find the code. Action remapper. I don't know. I don't know how I did this. So I think the way that it's working, just from what I'm looking at here, is that so your input actions in your game. So if I go to project settings, input map, right? You can have a name for the input action, but then you can have multiple different controls listed under that action, right? So you can mix and match. Like I could add a controller, a joypad button here, right? So for each action in the game, what I'm basically doing is anytime I want to remap something, I detect if the input is coming from a controller or from the keyboard. And then I just iterate, or I look at the events in each action, and I find whatever the controller event is, and I will remove that and replace it with a new controller event. So that's happening all at runtime. You can modify the input map at runtime there. As far as like how that's saved and loaded, I don't know. I think you can serialize like in individual input events somehow. But I have like erase keyboard events, erase controller events in here. And then this is controller event that just checks the input event and says, you know, if it's a joypad button or a joypad motion. So I think that's the general strategy, is that you support keyboard and controller under the same input actions. And then when you're going to remap things, you just detect which device that action is coming from, and you just replace that event inside of that action. You could check if it's controller input in that last part. Yeah. Sounds good. I'm going to give this a try. Yeah, you're welcome. I hope that helps a little bit. I haven't worked on Gunforge in a while, so I don't know if that's a super helpful explanation, but... Okay. We got to get this ability finished here. I was wondering if I have to split the input actions mainly. Gotcha. All right, thank you, Fira. Thanks again for the raid. Appreciate it, and hope you have a great dinner. All right, so we're going to need to tag certain abilities as being absorbed, so we'll do that next, but I'm going to take a quick break again. The cat is being annoying, so I'm going to go see what's up, what he's getting into. But I'll be right back in just a couple minutes, okay? Okay. So we're going to need to add a flag to these composed abilities. Base composed ability. Public bool is absorbed. Get protected set. Public void set is absorbed. Then when we duplicate, we want to do duplicated is absorbed equals is absorbed. Okay. All right. So now if we go back to this, let's grab var absorbed ability is equal to this. We're going to say absorbed ability set is absorbed true, and then absorbed ability add composed abilities. Okay. How do I remove a composed ability? I think I can clear composed abilities, but I can't remove. So let's do public void remove composed abilities. Let's do func base composed ability bool predicate composed abilities where predicate to list. Do I need to recall this establish ability parents? What is this called? Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah. Oh, I also need to do scale abilities for tier and here. Oh, wait, no. Add projections. I'm in the wrong spot, but I actually may need to do that. Okay, I don't want to get too too far ahead of myself, but let me log that. That might be something that I need to do. Investigate whether projected abilities need to be scaled when adding via I don't think I want to actually, but I just need to take a bigger look at it. But we're not going to get sidetracked here. Scale abilities for tier. Yeah, it looks like this is actually explicitly excluding projected abilities. So that's actually fine. Yeah, that's actually fine. So I'm just going to delete that. That was a waste of time. Okay. Okay, all right. So remove composed abilities. Wait a minute. No, wait a minute. I don't need to do that here. I don't need to call rescale if I'm just removing them. I don't know where my head is at right now. It's all right. It is scaling the abilities when I add them back. Okay. So what I'll do in here now is let me look at something. There's a lot of considerations that I have to make here to make sure everything's going to work consistently. Okay, I think we're good. The only thing I'm concerned about is like if I have a non-combat ability, so that's an ability that just updates sort of out of band, outside of combat. If I have a non-combat ability that scales based off of the ability on another like adjacent card, but that card that's being looked at is this one that has absorbed abilities, which are going to be cleared when the combat starts, is that going to be a problem? Let me just put a to-do in here. May need to update board state contingent abilities when updating. I don't know. There's a lot to consider here. But anyway. So what we want to do is we want to remove. So if we do context.basecard.remove composed abilities, where x.is absorbed. So we're going to remove all absorbed abilities if we're on the top edge of the board. And then we need to choose a couple of random enemy abilities here. I'm just going to do this the easy way to start. We need to, okay, so let's do const int base absorb count is equal to 1. Var current absorb count is equal to base absorb count. When we scale this, scalar is equal to ability scalars dot make additive scalar 1. Current absorb count is equal to scalar base absorb count tier. Okay, so now in here, what I'll do is I'm going to say var abilities to take is equal to all enemy abilities dot order by rand I is fine, but we could do rand f dot take current absorb count to list. For each var ability and abilities to take, we're going to duplicate the ability, we're going to set it as absorbed, and we're going to add it. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Okay. So now what? I need to add a description for this. Absorbs up to current absorb count, random abilities from enemy cards on combat start if this card is on the top edge of the board. Okay. This needs to be singular or plural. Description utils, pluralize. Current absorb count, abilities. And now let's upgrade the tier as well. I should also probably add, well, let's just see if it works. So it should only absorb one ability because why? Should only absorb one ability because the training dummy only has one ability. Okay. So if I start, we should see that that has 7 preserve and that has scaled. So we can auto-resolve that. So that works. Let's give the training dummy some additional abilities. So we got shield, ability builder, dot damage, 1, ability builder, dot heal, 1. Let's just do also, yeah, we'll do blind. That's fine. Oh, maybe not. Let's just do bleed. Blind requires some configuration that I don't want to do. So now we're giving the training dummy a lot of abilities, and so we'll see if this random 2 ability selection is working. And then we'll carry that into the next combat as well to see if that's going to absorb new abilities. I should also probably add some kind of description prefix as well for this. Okay, let's see. What did it absorb? It absorbed preserve and bleed from the training dummy. Very nice. So we'll do auto-resolve here. So now if I keep it there, what it should do is it should get 2 new abilities now. Or it may get the same ones because it's random, but nope, see, it got 2 new ones. So 2 damage and 2 bleed. Perfect. Oh, I lost. So what I want to see now is if I move it off of the top edge of the board, it should retain its absorbed abilities. So let's do this, start that, auto-resolve. So this has 2 bleed and heal 2. I'll move it off of the edge of the board, and I should retain that ability now. Yeah, perfect. All right. So now the last thing to try is, will this still work with alchemy? So let's take this syringe. We'll alchemize that with this. This should still have those abilities. Perfect. And then if I put this here now, or let's say I want to get 2 new abilities. So I want to absorb new abilities here. So if I start this and pause. Yeah. Oh wait, no, it kept the heal and bleed. Or maybe it just copied those again. Uh-oh. Shoot. I have to restart. That's okay. Okay, 2 damage, 7 preserve. We can alchemize this now. I just want to see if it gets new abilities. Okay, so it still has the 2 damage and 7 preserve. Put this back on the top edge of the board. If I go to the next combat here. Hey, cool game we got going here. Thank you, Fried. Thank you. Welcome to the stream. Okay, it did select random abilities, so it is clearing those absorbed abilities and getting new ones. Now that's not sorted correctly. It needs to be sorted before the negative abilities, but that's okay. Did I not write down? Okay, let me just take a note of this. Sort absorbed abilities before negative abilities. And then what else? Okay, I think that's going to work. But yeah, should be fine. Okay, well, this is not yet done, but I do need to come up with an actual card for this, because right now I'm just putting it in my God mode item just to get the functionality working. But it's working. I think that's fine. So add absorb ability. There's still some work to do, but that's the important thing, is that it is working. Okay, so anyway, I think I'll end the stream there. I gotta go get some lunch. But thank you all for joining. Thank you for being here, and welcome to all the new people. Again, Alka Mortis is available for wishlisting on Steam, so definitely check it out if you're interested. I would appreciate that. And I stream every day at 10 a.m. Eastern. I may also stream in the afternoons. So join the Discord if you want to be notified when I go live again. And I think that's basically it. So thanks again, everybody. Check out the links in the description below. Those are all the ways you could support me. And I will see you in the next one. Hope you have a great day, and bye-bye for now.